Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere a lot less medieval, but every bit as unforgiving. Forget castles and knights. This story drops you in the dust, the heat, and the chaos of Mogadishu, Somalia, in the early 1990s. The images you might know come from headlines, or maybe the movie Black Hawk Down, but what I'm about to walk you through is the reality of what it would feel like if you were suddenly there. No Hollywood polish, no heroic soundtrack, just sweat, fear, and equipment that hurts you almost as much as it's supposed to protect you. Before we start, go ahead and get comfortable. Maybe turn down the lights, grab some water, and let the hum of a fan in the background set the mood. And if you enjoy this kind of long, winding look into the rougher edges of history, you can always subscribe, but only if you really want to. Drop a comment too about where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I always find it fascinating to see who's out there listening across different time zones. Alright, imagine this. You've just woken up in Mogadishu in 1993. The good news, you're breathing. The bad news, the air you're breathing feels like it's been baking inside an oven for hours. Sweat sticks to your body before you've even moved, and the day hasn't started yet. You're about to find out why being a US soldier here is less about Hollywood action and more about surviving moment to moment, hoping your gear holds together, and praying the next street corner isn't your last. You wake up before the sun has even burned its way over the horizon, and the first thing you notice is the heat. It's not gentle, not the kind of warmth you stretch into. It's already suffocating, pressing down on you, wrapping itself around your body before the day has even started. You didn't sleep well because nobody sleeps well here. The barracks are little more than hot metal boxes that trap yesterday's heat, turning them into ovens at night. The thin cot beneath you is barely softer than the concrete floor, and the sweat-soaked sheets cling like they've fused with your skin. Forget about a cool breeze drifting through the window. There is no breeze. There's just heavy air, dust, and the faint hum of flies that never seem to leave. You blink into the dim light, eyes dry from the grit in the air, and for a second you almost convince yourself you're still back home. But then you hear it, the constant drone of generators outside, the distant pop of gunfire that nobody reacts to anymore, the occasional chop of helicopter blades in the distance. Welcome back to Mogadishu. There's no gentle alarm clock, no soft radio song, no phone buzzing with a notification. The sound that wakes you is the heat itself, along with the restless noise of dozens of other bodies shifting around in cramped quarters. Boots scuff against concrete, someone coughs, someone curses under their breath. Nobody's happy, but everyone's awake, because here, sleep doesn't belong to you. You swing your legs off the cot, feet hitting the floor, that's somehow sticky and gritty at the same time. Sand and sweat coat everything. Your socks are already damp, and you haven't even put them on yet. You glance down and see yesterday's dust still ground into your uniform, the same one you'll pull on again today, because there's no fresh pile waiting, no clean stack folded neatly by your bed. Laundry isn't exactly a daily ritual here. You wear your gear until it reeks like a dead animal, and then you wear it some more. By the time you peel it off, it's stiff with sweat and grime, but it doesn't matter. Everyone stinks. Everyone's exhausted. Hygiene is just a rumour. The air inside the barracks is thick with smells layered on top of each other. Sweat, dust, gun oil, burned coffee, and the unmistakable sharp sting of foot powder. which everyone uses but somehow never helps. There's also the faint metallic tang of weapons being cleaned nearby. You'd think that would feel reassuring, soldiers carefully running rags through barrels and snapping magazines into place. But it doesn't. It just reminds you that today, like yesterday, you'll need every single round. You wipe your face with your hand, but it only makes you feel dirtier. There's no refreshing splash of cold water to wake you up. The taps, when they work, spit out something lukewarm at best, usually with a strange taste of rust and chlorine mixed in. The idea of brushing your teeth feels like luxury, not routine. The toothpaste is half dried in the tube, the brush frayed like it's been through a garbage disposal, and the water you swish around after makes you question if your mouth is actually cleaner or just more contaminated. You spit, and the taste lingers anyway. Someone nearby cracks open an MRE for breakfast, and the smell of processed, shelf-stable food instantly fills the air. Powdered eggs, instant oatmeal, or worse. One of those grim little packets of meat product that smells like dog food on a good day. It's not appetizing, but it's calories, and calories are fuel. You're going to need every ounce of it. Some guys rip open the instant coffee packets, stirring them into water that's only marginally cooler than the air around you. It doesn't taste like coffee so much as bitter dirt, but it does what it's supposed to do, which is keep you awake enough to function. You choke it down, grimace, and move on. There's a layer of sand on everything, including your skin, including your cot, including the inside of your boots. No matter how much you shake them out, no matter how carefully you set them down at night, the sand always finds its way back in. It grinds against your feet with every step, wearing blisters into your skin, turning each movement into a constant irritation. And today, like every other day, you'll walk, run, and fight with that grit cutting into you. Small problems never stay small here. Your throat feels dry before you've even spoken a word. The canteen by your bed is half empty, the water inside warm, like it's been sitting in a car on a hot summer afternoon. You take a sip anyway. It's not refreshing, but it keeps you alive. That's the theme here. Nothing tastes good, nothing feels good, nothing looks good, but it's all about survival. A sip of warm water is better than no water. A stale MRE is better than nothing. A fitful few hours of sweaty half-sleep on a cot is better than lying awake all night, listening to your own nerves rattle. Someone jokes about the heat, but nobody laughs. It's not funny anymore. The sweat starts before you've even finished dressing, soaking through the back of your shirt, dripping down your temples, stinging your eyes. You haven't even stepped outside yet. When you finally sling on your vest, the weight drags on your shoulders immediately, reminding you of what's coming. This isn't just heat. This is the kind of heat that takes energy out of you before you've done anything at all, that leaves you starting the day already tired. The sun finally pushes up over the horizon, a glaring, blinding white light that feels less like sunrise and more like someone turned on a furnace. There's no shade that lasts. The few trees scattered around provide only slivers of cover, and even inside the base, the concrete walls soak up the heat and throw it back at you until you feel like you're baking on all sides. The air smells of hot asphalt, exhaust, and dust. Always dust. It sticks to your skin, your lips, the corners of your eyes. You breathe it in, cough, and keep moving, because coughing doesn't change the fact that the air itself is your enemy. This is how every day begins here. You wake up drenched in sweat, surrounded by the weight of the heat, already wishing the sun would go back down. There's no comfort, no cool breeze, no pause button to give you a break. Just the sound of helicopters gearing up somewhere in the distance, the rattle of equipment being checked, and the slow, grinding realization that this is only the start. You've barely opened your eyes, and already the day is pressing down on you like an unshakable burden. And soon you'll step outside the barracks and find out just how much worse the city can make it. The place you call barracks isn't really a barracks. It's more like a stripped-down storage container someone decided could hold human beings. The walls are thin enough that every sound bleeds through. Coughing, snoring, arguments, the shuffle of boots against concrete, the metallic clank of a rifle being set down too hard. Privacy doesn't exist here. You're crammed shoulder to shoulder with a few dozen other guys who all smell as bad as you do. There's no such thing as personal space, not when the cots are lined up so close you can feel your neighbour's elbow bump against you in the middle of the night. You look around and see the same setup everywhere. One cot, one footlocker, one pile of gear stacked against the wall, and maybe a photograph taped up somewhere if someone wanted a reminder of home. That's all. There are no posters, no decorations, no sense of individuality. Everyone's world here is the same exact 3 feet of space, and the only thing that changes is how fast the sand builds up under the bed. The thin mattress is stained from sweat and dust, and the frame creaks whenever you shift your weight. It's the kind of creak that tells you this thing is one bad night away from collapsing. Nobody replaces them, nobody fixes them, because nobody really cares. If it holds you for a few more weeks, that's good enough. The air inside is worse than outside. There are fans, technically, but they only stir hot air around like a giant hairdryer pointed at your face. Some of them don't even work anymore. They just rattle loudly, vibrating against the wall, while pushing nothing but the smell of mildew and body odour from one end of the room to the other. If you get unlucky, your cot ends up right next to one of those fans, so instead of sleeping, you spend hours listening to the metal blades rattle like a loose screw about to launch itself. There's no cold air, no air conditioning, no escape from the heat. The walls soak it up all day, and at night they radiate it back out, so you sweat through the sheets even when the sun goes down. It doesn't matter what time it is. The barracks are always hot, always humid, always sticky. Your uniform never dries. Your boots never air out. You could wring them out and watch the sweat drip onto the concrete floor. And then there's the smell. It's the first thing that hit you when you walk back in, and it never leaves. A mixture of unwashed bodies, wet socks, gun oil, and the chemical stench of MRE heaters. Someone's always cooking one up in the corner, trying to make their meal edible, and instead it just adds to the stink. The room is a constant stew of odours that cling to your clothes and skin till you can't tell where you end and the room begins. If you step outside for a moment and come back in, it hits you again, fresh every time, like opening the door to a locker room that's been sealed shut for a week. The light is dim, flickering overhead bulbs that buzz with that faint electrical hum. Sometimes they go out completely, leaving the place in shadow until someone kicks the breaker back to life. It doesn't make much difference. You're not supposed to feel comfortable here. The whole place is functional, not livable. Beds to crash on, lockers to shove gear in, walls to keep the dust somewhat out. That's it. Nobody designed this place with rest in mind. Rest is a luxury, Here, you settle for not collapsing. There's no quiet, not even at night. Somebody's always moving around, shuffling to the latrine, checking gear, whispering into a radio, or coughing in that dry, hacking way that never stops because the dust has been scraping their lungs raw since the day they landed. Snoring battles happen between cots, each guy trying to outdo the other in volume. And if you're unlucky enough to have someone with nightmares near you, you wake up in the dark to thrashing, shouting, or muffled sobbing. Nobody talks about it in the morning, but it lingers anyway, unspoken and heavy. If you thought you'd get peace by throwing on some headphones, think again. Batteries die fast, wires break, and the noise outside doesn't let up long enough for music to drown it out. Generators thrum, helicopters thunder overhead at random intervals, and sometimes gunfire cracks in the distance. The sound leaks right through the walls, a reminder that even when you're inside, you're not really safe. The floor is always gritty. Sand, dirt, and bits of gravel get tracked in constantly, no matter how often it's swept. Every step crunches under your boots. If you're barefoot, it sticks to your sweat, grinding between your toes, embedding itself into the skin until it feels like part of you. You could mop the place 10 times a day, and it would look the same an hour later. Sand always wins. Little comforts that seem normal back home don't exist here. There's no pillow-top mattress, no clean sheets, no hot shower waiting in the corner. The showers, when they work, spit out water that smells like metal and leaves you feeling more coated in grime than when you stepped in. Sometimes they're just dribbles of lukewarm sludge. Soap is whatever you manage to pack. Shampoo runs out quick. Towels never dry because the air is too damp. You end up hanging them in the sun outside, and they still come back stiff and crusted with dust. The footlockers everyone lives out of are a joke. Small metal boxes, barely big enough to hold a change of clothes, some letters from home, and maybe a couple of extra magazines if you've got them. They clang loudly every time they open, echoing in the cramped room. If you are hoping for privacy, forget it. Everybody sees what you've got, and if it's something rare, like an extra snack or a better brand of socks, you'll have a dozen guys eyeing you, waiting for you to slip up and leave it unattended. Nobody steals outright, but nothing ever stays secret. Even sleeping itself feels like work. You lie down on a cot that's barely wider than your body, listening to the hum of the fan and the shuffle of boots, trying not to think about the fact that you'll be up again in a few hours doing the same thing all over. Dreams, when they come, are broken and strange, full of noise and heat. You wake up more tired than when you lay down, drenched in sweat that soaks the mattress beneath you. And then it's morning again, or something like it, because here days blur together until you can't tell one from the other. You'd think at least inside these walls there'd be a sense of safety. But that's another illusion. The barracks are just thin walls and tin roofs, and everyone knows it. One well-aimed rocket-propelled grenade, one mortar shell, and this whole place could come down in splinters and twisted metal. Everyone's thought about it. Nobody talks about it. You just lie there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the buzzing lights and the hum of generators, hoping tonight isn't the night something slams into the roof and turns the whole place into a coffin. The truth is, there's nothing here you could call comfortable. The barracks are just a box to hold bodies until it's time to move again. No matter how you shift on the cot, no matter how many times you wipe the sweat from your face, you never feel rested, never feel clean, never feel at ease. This isn't home. It isn't even a safe place to brief. It's just where you wait for the next thing to happen, knowing that the moment you step outside, the real misery starts all over again. You shuffle toward breakfast with the kind of energy that doesn't really qualify as energy at all. It's more like momentum. Just enough forward motion to keep you moving because stopping isn't an option. Your stomach's been growling since the middle of the night, but hunger here isn't sharp anymore. It's dull, constant, the kind of ache you've gotten used to ignoring. By the time you reach the mess area, you're already sweating through your uniform again, because of course you are. The sun isn't even at full power yet, and the heat already feels like someone aimed a blow dryer at your face on maximum setting. Breakfast in Mogadishu isn't bacon and eggs. It isn't pancakes stacked high with syrup. It isn't a cup of fresh coffee that makes the morning bearable. It's an MRE, a meal ready to eat, which sounds like a gift from the future, until you realise it's really just a brown plastic pouch of food engineered to survive a nuclear winter. Inside are smaller pouches, powdered eggs, maybe some instant oatmeal, a brick of what's supposed to be a toaster pastry, but tastes more like sugary cardboard, and of course, the infamous meat patty. It has no smell when you first tear the package open, but once it hits your nose, it's impossible to forget. The cooking process is a joke. Each MRE comes with a little chemical heater packet. You tear it open, add water, and slip your entree pouch inside. Within seconds, it starts hissing and steaming, giving off a smell that's equal parts plastic and burning metal. You hold it up carefully, hoping it doesn't leak or explode, and wait while it half cooks whatever's inside. When it's done, the food is always lukewarm, never hot, never cold, just the exact wrong temperature to remind you you're far from home. You squeeze it onto a tray, or if you're too tired for that, you eat it straight out of the pouch with a plastic spoon that bends every time you dig in. And the sand. There's always sand. It doesn't matter how careful you are. It finds its way into every bite. It sticks to your lips, grinds between your teeth, mixes into the mushy texture of the eggs or oatmeal until you can't tell if you're eating food or chewing the desert itself. You stop trying to spit it out after the first week. You just swallow because the effort isn't worth it. Everyone around you does the same thing, chewing quietly with that 1,000-yard stare, the sound of grit cracking between their teeth like tiny rocks. The coffee packets are next. You rip one open, dump the brown powder into a canteen cup, and stir with whatever's handy. The water is lukewarm, never hot, so the powder doesn't dissolve properly. You end up with floating chunks of half-mixed coffee that taste like bitter dirt. But you drink it anyway, because caffeine is the only thing standing between you and collapse. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't even taste tolerable, but it's part of the routine, so you choke it down and move on. Some guys skip it, preferring to stay half asleep, rather than drink what tastes like liquid regret. The fruit component, if there is one, is usually a pouch of diced pears, or peaches suspended in a syrup so sweet it makes your teeth ache. You tear it open, and immediately sand blows into it, sticking to the syrup like flies. You eat it anyway, spoon scraping the pouch until there's nothing left but the gritty aftertaste. There's also a packet of crackers, dry and crumbly, with a tiny square of peanut butter or cheese spread that smells faintly like feet. The crackers disintegrate into dust as soon as you bite them, coating your mouth until you're desperate for another sip of warm water from your canteen. Nobody talks much during breakfast. The air is too heavy and everyone's too tired. You sit shoulder to shoulder with guys who look just as drained as you feel, all bent over their pouches, chewing slowly, eyes half shut. The only sounds are spoons scraping, pouches tearing, boots shifting in the sand. Occasionally someone cracks a joke about how the eggs taste like drywall or how the peanut butter could seal a leak in a submarine, but the laughter, if there is any, is weak and brief. Nobody has the energy to keep it going. You think about the food you'd kill for right now. A stack of pancakes drowning in syrup, a plate of bacon crisp enough to crumble between your teeth, even just a cup of coffee that's actually hot. Back home, you might have rolled your eyes at cafeteria food or complained about gas station sandwiches. Out here, you'd trade half your gear for a cheeseburger. The comparison makes it worse, so you stop thinking about it. You focus on the pouch in front of you, on finishing it quickly, on swallowing the last gritty spoonful so you can move on. And then there are the guys who skip breakfast altogether. They rip open an energy bar, choke it down in 3 bites, and call it good. The heat kills appetite anyway. Eating feels like a chore, not a relief. But you force yourself because you know what's coming. You're going to sweat out every calorie, every ounce of energy, and you can't afford to be running on empty. You eat not because you want to, but because you have to. The mess area itself is nothing more than a few tables shoved together under a canopy that provides almost no shade. The flies are constant, circling your head, landing on your food, buzzing in your ears. You swat at them with one hand while spooning mush into your mouth with the other. The dust kicks up with every step anyone takes nearby, settling back down into the food as if it belongs there. Plates, if you even use one, are never clean. They're wiped down with rags that haven't been washed in weeks, leaving a greasy film behind that clings to the next meal. You finish quickly, because the longer you sit, the hotter it gets. The sun climbs fast here, and the canopy overhead does nothing to stop the light from searing down on you. Sweat drips onto your food as you eat, and you don't even bother wiping it away. It's part of the meal now. Everything is part of the meal, the sweat, the sand, the dust. You just get it down as fast as you can, rinse your mouth with warm water, and stand up, already dreading the gear you'll have to strap on next. Breakfast doesn't leave you satisfied. It doesn't give you energy. It just fills the hole in your stomach enough to keep you moving for a while. And as you stand there, adjusting your vest, wiping the last crumbs off your hands, you realise the day hasn't even really started yet. The sun is higher, the air is hotter, and outside the wire, Mogadishu is waiting. You finish choking down breakfast, wipe your hands on your pants because napkins don't exist here, and it's time for the part of the day that feels less like preparation and more like punishment, the gear. Back home, you might have watched military commercials with clean-shaven guys jogging in perfect formation, packs bouncing lightly on their backs, all smiles and American flags waving behind them. What those ads don't show you is the reality that every single piece of equipment is designed to feel like an anchor, slowly dragging you toward the ground. The first layer is your uniform, already damp from sweat. You pull it tighter, adjust the belt, and start layering on the rest. The vest comes first, a bulky slab of Kevlar that hangs on your shoulders like someone draped a bag of wet cement over you. It's stiff. It smells like old sweat, soaked into fabric that's never really been washed, and the straps dig into your collarbones the moment you tighten them. You've barely started, and already your shoulders ache. Next comes the webbing. Pouches for magazines, grenades, a radio if you're unlucky enough to be carrying one today. Each pouch is stuffed to the brim, and none of it feels balanced. The weight pulls you forward, tugs at your sides, bounces against your ribs when you move. You cinch the straps tighter to keep it from flopping around, but that just means the edges bite harder into your torso. You try to shift it, adjust it, make it sit better, but there's no such thing as comfortable. There's only less unbearable. Then the helmet. It's heavy, awkward, and constantly sliding down to block your vision. You shove it back up, and it slides down again as soon as you move. Sweat drips down your forehead, collects in the padding, and trickles into your eyes. The chin strap rubs raw spots on your skin, leaving a permanent line of irritation. Take it off, and you risk catching a bullet in the skull. Leave it on, and you feel like you're carrying a bowling ball on your neck all day. You don't really have a choice. The boots are already soaked with sweat from the short walk to breakfast, and now you lace them tight, feeling the leather pinch your toes. The soles are thick, but not thick enough to stop the rocks and broken glass scattered across Mogadishu's streets from stabbing into your feet. Sand sneaks inside no matter how tight you tie them, grinding against your socks until blisters bloom along your heels. You stomp your feet a couple of times, trying to settle everything into place, but you know it won't last. Within an hour, every step will feel like you're walking on knives. And then there's the pack. You heft it off the floor, sling it over your shoulders, and instantly feel your spine protest. Depending on the mission, it could weigh anywhere from 60 to 100 pounds, packed with water, extra ammunition, medical supplies, batteries, maybe even parts for the radio. It's not a backpack, it's a punishment device. The straps dig into your shoulders, cutting circulation until your arms start tingling. You shift it to your hips, and then the belt digs into your waist like a clamp. There's no good spot for it to sit. Every step drives it deeper into your muscles, until your back feels like it's on fire. The rifle is next. It's your lifeline, the one thing you can't set down. You sling it across your chest, where it bounces with every step, bruising your ribs, knocking into your arms, catching on your gear. It's not light, not after hours of carrying it. The metal heats up in the sun until it burns your hands if you don't keep gloves on. You're supposed to treat it like an extension of your body, but it feels more like an unwelcome parasite glued to your side. Altogether, the weight stacks up until you feel like you're carrying another human being piggyback. Your shoulders sag, your knees creak, and every step is a reminder that the gear owns you. You try to stand up straight, try to walk like it doesn't hurt, but the truth is every movement is work. Even breathing feels harder, the vest pressing against your chest, the straps tightening every time you take a deep inhale. You're sweating through your clothes before you've even taken 10 steps. The heat trapped against your body by all the layers. There's no getting used to it, not really. Sure, your muscles adapt, your body adjusts, but the weight never stops feeling heavy. You carry it because you have to, not because you ever stop noticing it. The only relief is setting it down at the end of the day, when the straps finally slip off your shoulders, and your back screams in both pain and gratitude. But right now, that moment is hours away, and between here and there is a whole city that wants to kill you. You glance around at the other guys, and they look the same. bent under the weight, faces already slick with sweat, eyes narrowed against the sun. Nobody complains out loud, because complaining doesn't change the fact that you have to carry it. But you can see it in the way they move, slow and deliberate, like every step costs something. The heat, the dust, the constant drag of the gear. It's a tax your body pays every second, and it never stops collecting. And this is before you even step out into the streets. Inside the base, it's bad enough. Outside, it's worse. Out there, the weight doesn't just slow you down, it makes you a target. You move slower, sweat harder, tire faster, all while trying to stay sharp enough to react in an instant. You're dragging a second body with you through the city, and if you slip, if you stumble, if you stop even for a moment, the city is waiting to swallow you whole, so you cinch the straps tighter, hitch the rifle higher, and keep moving, every muscle screaming under the load. Because the gear isn't optional. It's the only thing between you and dying in the dust. And as heavy as it feels now, you know it'll feel twice as bad in another hour, 3 times as bad by the time the sun sets. And when it does, you'll still be carrying it, every step grinding you down, every ounce pressing you closer to the ground. You step out past the wire, and instantly the world changes. Inside the compound, life is miserable, but at least it's predictable. Outside, every sight, sound, and smell tells you the same thing. You don't belong here, and you're not welcome. The streets of Mogadishu aren't just dusty roads lined with broken buildings. They're alive, pulsing with heat, chaos, and hostility. The moment your boots hit the ground, you feel eyes on you, dozens of them, watching from doorways, rooftops, alleys. Some are curious, some are hostile. None of them are friendly. The heat hits harder out here, bouncing off the concrete and dirt, rising in shimmering waves that distort everything in front of you. The sun glares down, reflecting off broken glass, metal scraps, and sheets of corrugated tin hammered into makeshift walls. The dust is constant, whipped into the air by every step, clinging to your sweaty skin, mixing with the exhaust of battered trucks and motorcycles that rattle past, engines coughing like they're on their last breath. The streets themselves are a maze. Narrow alleys twist and turn, leading to open markets crowded with people, animals and stalls slapped together with wood and tarps. Goats bleat from the roadside, chickens scatter underfoot, and children run barefoot across the dirt, weaving between vehicles with no fear at all. Women balance baskets on their heads, men argue loudly over prices, and everywhere you look, people stare at you in silence. The noise of the market is constant. Shouts, clattering metal, the bark of vendors trying to sell scraps of food. But underneath it all, there's a hum of tension, like the whole city is holding its breath. Trash piles up in the gutters, half burned, half rotting. Plastic bags flap in the hot wind, snagging on barbed wire and broken walls. The smell is overwhelming. Smoke, diesel fuel, sweat, rotting meat, open sewage running in shallow ditches at the edges of the street. You breathe through your mouth, but it doesn't help. The stink clings to everything, coating your tongue until it feels like you can taste the city itself. Every step through these streets is loud, even when you try to move quietly. Boots crunch against gravel, gear rattles, radios crackle. You stand out in every way possible. Foreign uniforms, helmets, rifles, the heavy weight of your presence pressing down on the crowd. You're not blending in. You couldn't if you tried. You're moving through someone else's home, and every window, every rooftop, Every shadow could hide someone waiting to make you pay for it. The buildings loom over you, most of them half destroyed, pockmarked by bullet holes, crumbling concrete stacked on concrete. Some are nothing but hollow shells. Others still hold families who watch silently as you pass. Curtains shift. Eyes peek out. You can't tell who's just curious and who's signalling to someone else down the block. Every open window looks like the mouth of a gun barrel. Every alley feels like a trap. Vehicles choke the streets. Old Toyotas, trucks welded together from mismatched parts. Motorcycles that dart between crowds with impossible speed. Some carry goods to sell. Others carry armed men who watch you with flat expressions. Hands resting on weapons that look like they've been in circulation since the last war. The city is filled with guns, and most of them aren't pointed in your favour. Your rifle feels heavier here because you know you might need it at any second. But firing it isn't simple. One wrong shot, one wrong reaction, and the street could turn into chaos in seconds. The line between civilian and fighter is thin, often invisible. A man in rags could be just a man in rags, or he could be the one carrying the RPG aimed at the Humvee up ahead. A teenager throwing rocks could be just a teenager, or he could be signalling to someone hidden in the shadows. Everyone looks harmless until we aren't, and by the time you know the difference, it's usually too late. The noise never stops. Generators rumble, vendors shout, engines backfire, goats bleat, radios crackle, voices rise and fall in a language you don't understand. Somewhere in the distance, gunfire pops. Nobody flinches. For them, it's background noise, as normal as a car horn back home. For you, it's a reminder that violence isn't far. It's always just around the corner, waiting for the moment you relax. The ground under your boots is uneven. Chunks of broken pavement. Potholes filled with foul water. Trash scattered everywhere. Each step sends dust rising into the air, clinging to your sweaty face, mixing with the taste of metal in your mouth from the constant tension. The gear drags on your shoulders, every ounce heavier in the heat. Every step a battle between exhaustion and the need to stay alert. Kids run up sometimes, tugging at your uniform, holding out their hands for candy or water. Some of them smile, some just stare with wide eyes. You can't tell if it's harmless or a distraction, if they're just children, or if they're being used to keep your attention while someone else lines up a shot. You hand over nothing, or maybe you give a tiny sip from your canteen, but you never let your guard down. Smiling back feels dangerous. Every interaction feels dangerous. And then there are the looks from the men, the older ones, the group standing in doorways or leaning against walls. Their eyes follow you, hard, unblinking. No words, no smiles. Just steady, sharp gazes that let you know they don't want you here. You can feel the weight of it pressing down on you more than the gear on your back. It's a kind of silence that speaks louder than shouting. You don't need to understand the language to know what they're saying. Every sound, every movement keeps you wired, keeps your pulse just a little too high. You're scanning rooftops, scanning alleys, watching hands, watching windows. You don't just walk through the streets of Mogadishu. You crawl through them mentally, inch by inch, second by second, always bracing for the moment the calm shatters. Because here, calm is an illusion. Calm is the city lulling you into dropping your guard before it turns on you. So you keep walking, boots grinding against the dust, sweat pouring down your face, eyes darting from one shadow to the next. The streets close in around you, the noise swelling, the air thick with heat and hostility. Every step forward is a gamble, and you already know the house always wins. Walking through Mogadishu, you never really breathe normally. Every inhale feels short, shallow, clipped off before your lungs can fill. That's not because of the heat or the dust, though both of those chew at your throat with every step. It's because of the knowledge that at any second, a crack in the distance or a sudden whoosh could mean it's all over. Out here, you don't just worry about the crowd around you, the kids tugging at your gear, the silent men leaning in doorways. You worry about the rooftops, you worry about the shadows, you worry about the invisible hands and invisible eyes watching you from angles you can't see. Snipers aren't a maybe, they're a fact. They're out there every time you step off the base, every time you march down a street that feels too quiet, every time you cross an intersection that feels too wide. You don't know where they are, but you know they are there. A glint of light in a shattered window, a curtain twitching, a figure shifting in the corner of your vision. Any of them could be the one lining up a shot. And in Mogadishu, the shooters aren't picky. They don't need to know your name, your rank, or your purpose. All they see is the helmet, the rifle, the foreign uniform. That's enough to pull the trigger. You learn quickly how to move. Never linger in the open. Never pause where you're framed against the sky. Never walk through the middle of the street if there's even a sliver of cover to hug. You keep your head low, shoulders hunched, eyes darting, always scanning for angles, always asking yourself, if it happens now, where do I dive? But the truth is, there isn't always an answer. Sometimes you're just in the open, completely exposed, gear dragging you down, while sweat blinds your eyes. You're a moving target, and you know it. And then there's the sound you dread more than the sniper's crack. The hollow whoosh of a rocket-propelled grenade being fired. It's unmistakable. A deep, gut-punching thump that carries through the air a split second before everything erupts. Mogadishu is a city where RPGs are as common as street signs. Teenagers carry them slung over their shoulders like fishing rods. Fighters stash them in alleys, in trucks, under tarps, waiting for the moment a convoy rolls past. The weapon itself is crude, simple, and terrifyingly effective. One trigger pull, and an entire Humvee can go up in flames. One misstep, and your squad is scattered across the street in pieces. You don't see the launcher until it's too late. You don't hear it until it's already on its way. The warhead shrieks through the air like a banshee, a sound that freezes your stomach before your brain even processes what's happening. Sometimes it slams into a wall nearby, shattering concrete and sending a spray of shrapnel across your body. Sometimes it hits its target, and then there's just fire, smoke, and screams. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it misses completely, tearing a hole in the street behind you while you dive for cover and try to calm your shaking hands. Every rooftop is a threat. Every alley is a potential launch site. Every corner you turn could be the one where someone steps out, hoists a launcher to their shoulder, and erases you in a single flash. And the worst part is, you never know who's carrying them. The guy you passed 2 blocks ago, the one who looked like a civilian with a bundle of cloth, could have an RPG hidden inside. The truck idling at the corner could have 2 men in the back, ready to fire the moment you're in range. You can't predict it. You can't prepare for it. All you can do is walk faster, sweat harder, and pray you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time. The tension is relentless, Your rifle is ready, finger hovering near the trigger guard, but you know it's a losing game. You can't shoot at every window. You can't fire at every shadow. You'd run out of ammo in 5 minutes and still miss the one person waiting for you 2 blocks down. The fear becomes a background noise, a constant hum at the base of your skull. You don't even talk about it anymore. You just feel it all the time, like a weight pressing down alongside the gear, already crushing your shoulders. When a shot rings out, it's chaos. The crack of a sniper rifle echoes through the street. Everyone dives for cover, and then there's silence again. Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows if the shooter is still there, or already gone. Sometimes a guy goes down, and you don't even hear the shot until after he's on the ground. Sometimes it's a miss. The bullet slamming into the wall behind you, spraying dust into your face, leaving you shaken but still standing. You never know which it'll be until it happens, and by then, it's too late to do anything but react. The RPGs are worse. At least with a sniper, it's one shot, one person. With a rocket, it's everyone. One explosion can wipe out an entire squad, shred a vehicle, block off an escape route. You move in convoys, but convoys make you bigger targets. Every street feels like a funnel, every intersection like a kill zone. The noise of engines and boots makes you feel like you're announcing yourself to the whole city. And in a way, you are. They hear you coming long before you arrive, and by the time you get there, the launcher could already be waiting. You try to remind yourself that most shots miss, that not every sniper hits their mark, that not every rocket finds its target. But that doesn't matter when you know it only takes one. One pull of a trigger, one flash from a rooftop, one streak of smoke across the sky. You carry that thought with you everywhere, every second. You walk fast, you keep your eyes moving, you grip your rifle tighter, but deep down you know none of it really protects you. It just distracts you long enough to keep moving forward. The city doesn't need to fire to hurt you. The threat itself is enough. It keeps your heart racing, keeps your hands slick with sweat, keeps you too wired to ever relax. The streets stretch on forever, each one a mirror of the last. Dust, trash, broken walls, silent stairs. And in every shadow, every rooftop, every cracked window, you see the same thing. The chance that today's the day someone squeezes a trigger, and you don't get back up. You don't notice it at first. The fear, the weight, the dust, those grab your attention right away. But give it half an hour out in the streets, and something else creeps in. Your mouth goes dry. Your lips start to crack. The inside of your throat feels like sandpaper. It's thirst. Constant, nagging, never satisfied. Back home, thirst was a minor inconvenience. You'd grab a glass, fill it with cold tap water, and take a long drink until it felt like the world had reset. Out here, thirst is a daily enemy, and water is never the relief you want it to be. Every soldier carries a canteen or two strapped to their gear. Some have camelbacks, plastic bladders with hoses that let you sip while you walk. Sounds great in theory. In practice, they're filled with warm water that tastes like a mixture of rubber and chlorine. The canteens aren't much better. Metal ones heat up in the sun until the water inside could scald your tongue. Plastic ones absorb the smell of whatever chemical wash they were last dunked in. You take a sip and grimace, but you take another anyway, because you have to. There's no such thing as cold water here. It doesn't matter if you filled your canteen fresh an hour ago. By the time you raise it to your lips, it's warm. Sometimes it's hot, like it's been sitting in the trunk of a car all day. You tilt it back and swallow, and it doesn't refresh you. It just makes you feel heavier, more bloated, more aware of the sweat pouring down your face. Cold water is a memory. Out here, water is survival, not comfort. You ration it because you have to. The sun is merciless, and you're sweating buckets before you've even started moving. But you can't just drink whenever you want. Supplies are limited, refills aren't guaranteed, and there's always the risk that what you do manage to refill isn't safe. The locals know the streams and wells aren't clean. You know it too. They're filled with bacteria, parasites, and whatever waste got dumped upstream. Drink from the wrong source, and you're not just thirsty anymore. You're curled up on the ground, sweating through fever. Stomach twisting until you can't stand. Out here, bad water isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence. So everything gets boiled or treated if you're lucky. Iodine tablets, chlorine drops. Sometimes just hope and a prayer. The taste is awful, metallic and sharp, leaving your tongue coated with bitterness that doesn't go away. You choke it down anyway, because the alternative is worse. Soldiers joke that the water tastes like swimming pool mixed with pennies. They're not wrong. You drink it fast to avoid the taste, but it still lingers, sticking to your mouth long after you've swallowed. The thirst doesn't stop. You drink, and your throat feels wet for a minute, maybe two. Then the heat sucks it right back out of you. Sweat pours down your back, soaks your shirt, drips into your eyes, stings the cuts on your hands. Every drop you swallow feels like it leaves your body instantly, pushed out through your pores before it can do any good. You start counting sips, trying to pace yourself, trying not to run out too early. Every swallow is measured, deliberate, like it's the last one you'll get. And then there's the weight. Water is heavy. Each full canteen adds pounds to gear that already feels unbearable. You carry it because you need it, but carrying it makes you thirstier. It's a cruel loop, hauling the very thing that weighs you down and dries you out at the same time. Soldiers joke about trading meals for extra water, because food doesn't matter if you can't swallow it. Water rules everything here. Without it, you're done. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you find ice. Not much, not clean, not guaranteed, but rare moments when someone brings in a cooler, or when supply lines manage to deliver something fresh. A single chunk of melting ice in your canteen feels like a miracle. You take a sip and it's actually cool, actually refreshing, and for a brief second it feels like life has returned to your body. But it melts within minutes, and you're back to the same warm sludge again. The memory of that cold sip lingers longer than the relief itself. Your lips split from the dryness. Your tongue feels swollen, sticking to the roof of your mouth. You stop sweating sometimes, and that's when it's dangerous. At first, it feels like a relief. Your shirt isn't soaked anymore. Your eyes aren't burning, but then the dizziness comes. The pounding headache. The way the world tilts sideways when you try to stand. That's heat exhaustion knocking. Dehydration dragging you toward collapse. You don't want to be that guy. The one who goes down in the street not because of gunfire, but because he didn't drink enough water. So you take another sip, even if it's warm, even if it tastes like plastic. Because water keeps you moving, even when it doesn't feel like it. You look at the city around you. The kids running barefoot through the dust. The women hauling buckets balanced on their heads. The men squatting in the shade, sipping from shared jugs. They've lived like this their whole lives. used to it, hardened by it. You've been here a few weeks, maybe months, and already the thirst grinds you down to nothing. The idea of turning on a tap, hearing the rush of clean, cold water. Back home, you never thought twice about it. Here, it feels like a dream too good to be real. So you keep sipping from your warm canteen, grimacing at the taste, wiping dust from your cracked lips, and marching forward. The water doesn't refresh you. It doesn't make you feel better. It just keeps you alive long enough to face the next stretch of road, the next blast of heat, the next moment when your throat burns dry again. You tilt your head back, and there it is, the thumping sound that's never far away. Helicopter rotors. The steady, pounding rhythm that rattles in your chest as much as it echoes in your ears. It's a sound you learn to pick out instantly, even when you're half asleep or buried under layers of sweat and exhaustion. In Mogadishu, helicopters are more than transportation. They're lifelines, they're hammers, and they're targets. The Black Hawks, the little birds, they slice the air above the city, circling like vultures, loud enough to drown out your own thoughts. When you're on the ground, you tell yourself they're there to protect you. The soldiers strapped into them are watching rooftops, watching alleys, scanning for muzzle flashes. The miniguns mounted on their sides can shred a car into twisted metal in seconds. Just knowing they're up there should make you feel safer. And sometimes it does. But it also makes you stand out. The sound carries for miles. Everyone in the city hears it. Everyone knows where the helicopters are. And if they're overhead, they know you're nearby. The dust they kick up when they pass low is its own punishment. The streets already choke you with grit, but when a Black Hawk roars overhead, the rotors blast everything loose. Trash, sand, scraps of paper, even corrugated metal ripped half off a roof. It slams into your face, coats your skin, blinds your eyes. You duck your head, squint through the storm, and keep moving. You can't show weakness, not here, not in front of the crowd that's always watching. The noise is relentless. It's not just loud, it's physical. The deep thump of the blades reverberates in your ribs, shakes your teeth, makes conversation impossible. You try to shout to the guy next to you, but the words are swallowed by the roar above. You stop trying. You just gesture with your hands, nod, keep moving in silence. The helicopters fill the air with noise, a constant reminder that you're in a war zone, even in the moments that might almost feel normal. At night, when you're lying on your cot in the barracks, the sound still comes. A Black Hawk moving overhead on some mission. Little birds darting like wasps across the skyline. You hear them in your dreams, if you get dreams at all. The chopping rhythm follows you, makes you flinch even in half sleep. The sound of rotors blending with the memory of gunfire. You can't escape it. It becomes part of you. The presence of helicopters above you is both comfort and curse. Comfort, because if something goes wrong, they're the ones who swoop in. They're the cavalry, circling above with firepower you can't match. If you're pinned down, they're the difference between getting home and not getting home. But curse, because everyone knows they're fragile. For all their power, they're just machines. Machines that can be shot down. And in Mogadishu, that's not a distant fear. It's real. RPGs don't care about armor plating. One lucky shot, and a helicopter spirals into the streets below, fire trailing from its tail, the sound of the crash echoing like thunder. You've seen the aftermath, or you've heard the stories. The twisted wreckage surrounded by fighters, the desperate scramble of soldiers on the ground trying to reach their comrades, the city turning into a hornet's nest in seconds. When you hear the helicopters above, you can't stop yourself from thinking about it. You glance at them and wonder if today's the day one doesn't come back. The crews inside know it too. You can see it in their eyes when you catch a glimpse during loading or unloading. They sit strapped in, goggles on, hands gripping weapons mounted at their sides, scanning constantly, knowing that every shadow, every rooftop might be the one hiding the shot that brings them down. They don't talk about it any more than you do. But it's there, written in the way their heads never stop moving, the way their fingers never leave the triggers. Sometimes, when you're marching through the streets, a little bird swoops low overhead, banking so close you feel the downdraft like a punch to the chest. It's meant to intimidate, to scatter the crowds, to remind everyone watching who holds the firepower. And it works for a moment. People duck, scatter, pull back into doorways. But the second it's gone, the eyes return, the hostility never really leaving. The helicopters can push the city back for a few minutes, but they can't change its nature. The tension always seeps back in. You tell yourself the sound is safety, that as long as you hear those blades chopping the air above, someone's watching over you. But it's not that simple. The sound is also a reminder that you're in danger, that you're marked, that you're part of a machine grinding through a city that doesn't want you. You glance up, squint into the glare of the sun, and see the dark silhouette of a Black Hawk circling. It's comforting, yes, but it's also haunting, because you know what happens if it falls. And you know what happens if one day the sound stops. So you keep moving through the streets, dust in your teeth, sweat dripping into your eyes, gear dragging you down, and always, always that thundering rhythm overhead. The helicopters never leave you alone. They're there in the daylight, they're there in the dark, they're there in your sleep. Above you, around you, inside your skull. A constant reminder that survival here depends not just on your rifle, not just on your squad, but on machines hovering overhead that are as vulnerable as you are. The street patrols wear you down, but the convoys bring a different kind of punishment. You climb into a Humvee, and instantly you're reminded this isn't the sleek, armoured vehicle you've seen in recruiting posters or movies. This is a rattling metal beast with just enough armour to make you feel claustrophobic, and not nearly enough to stop what the city throws at you. The first thing you notice is the heat. The Humvee doesn't have air conditioning. There's no soft seat cushion. No breeze drifting through. It's a box on wheels, baking under the Somali sun. And the moment you close the heavy metal door, the temperature inside climbs like someone lit a furnace. The air grows thick and stale, and your sweat has nowhere to go. It soaks into your uniform, into the seat, into the straps digging across your chest. The smell of body odour mixes with diesel fumes and gun oil until it's so thick you feel like you're breathing through a rag. The seats are hard, narrow and barely padded. You're shoulder to shoulder with the guy next to you, knees jammed into the gear piled in the cramped space, helmet knocking against the roof every time the vehicle hits a bump. The ride is rough, always rough. The streets aren't smooth roads. They're cratered, broken, uneven stretches of dirt and shattered pavement. The Humvee lurches and bucks, throwing you against the door, slamming your back into the frame. Your body vibrates constantly from the engine rumbling beneath your boots. The noise is deafening. The engine growls, the tyres grind over rubble, and the radio spits bursts of static and clipped voices. Add in the rattle of loose equipment and the constant metallic clank of rifles knocking together, and it feels like sitting inside a drum being beaten from all sides. You can't talk without shouting. Even then, the guy next to you might not hear. So most of the time, you sit in silence, gripping your rifle, eyes fixed on the sliver of window beside you. And those windows, don't expect them to offer comfort. They're tiny, thick slabs of a bullet-resistant glass, streaked with grime and dust, scratched until the world outside looks warped. You see enough to know what's out there, the crowds watching as you pass, the alleys you wish you could avoid, the faces that never look friendly. Sometimes a child runs alongside the convoy, barefoot, grinning, waving. Sometimes men glare, arms folded across their chests, eyes sharp with resentment. Every pair of eyes feels like a warning. Your rifle sits across your lap, muzzle pointed toward the floor, but your hands never leave it. The tension inside the vehicle is thick. Every man gripping his weapon tighter when the convoy slows, when it turns down a new street, when it passes through a market crowded with people pressing close on both sides. You know how fast calm can collapse into chaos. A rock against the door, a shot cracking through the air, the sudden whoosh of an RPG. In a Humvee, you're trapped. The gunner up top stands half exposed in the turret, manning the mounted weapon. He's the only one with a clear view, swivelling back and forth, scanning the rooftops, the alleys, the crowds. His body bakes in the sun, dust coating his goggles, hands gripping the handles of the weapon so tightly his knuckles go white. He's your first defence and your first target. Everyone knows the gunner is the one they'll shoot at first. Inside, the rest of you sit in the heat, the stink, the noise, every muscle tense, waiting. You try not to think about the fact that an RPG doesn't need to be accurate to kill you. The armour is thin, especially underneath. A well-placed mine or a lucky rocket can tear the vehicle apart in seconds. You've seen the wrecks on the side of the road, blackened shells surrounded by twisted metal. You don't talk about them, but you remember them every time the convoy slows, every time you hear a sound that's just a little too sharp, a little too close. The ride is endless. Minutes stretch into hours. Your legs cramp, your back aches, and your helmet feels heavier with every bump. You sip from your canteen, but the water is warm, and swallowing makes you feel sick in the heat. Sweat drips into your eyes, stings, mixes with the dust blowing in through the cracks. The city crawls by outside, one block after another, and every block looks the same. Broken buildings, hostile stairs, too many windows, too many places for someone to hide. You shift in your seat, trying to find some position that doesn't hurt, but there isn't one. Your knees knock against gear, your back presses against hot metal, your elbows bump the guy next to you until you both give up trying to move. The only relief is when the vehicle jolts to a stop and you're ordered out. But stepping out isn't really relief. It's trading one kind of danger for another. The Humvee makes you feel both trapped and exposed. Inside, you're confined, sweating, suffocating in the heat. Outside, you're a target in the open. Either way, you don't get to relax. The convoy moves on, grinding through the streets, every bump rattling your bones, every turn reminding you that this city belongs to someone else. And as you sit there, staring through dusty glass, clutching your rifle in sweaty hands, you know the Humvee isn't carrying you safely through Mogadishu. It's just carrying you deeper into it. The Humvee rolls on, bouncing you around like a rag doll. And you can feel the eyes before you even see the faces. They're everywhere. In doorways, leaning against crumbling walls, perched on rooftops, squatting in alleys. The city doesn't bother hiding its feelings. Every stare tells you the same thing. You don't belong here, and nobody wants you here. Back home, if you walk down a street, people might glance at you, maybe smile, maybe ignore you altogether. Here, every set of eyes locks onto you like you're an intruder. And that's exactly what you are. Foreign uniform, foreign gear, foreign weapon. You stand out more than anything else in Mogadishu. There's no blending in, no pretending you're just passing through. You're the enemy before you even say a word. The children are the first ones you notice. They dart out of alleys, barefoot, faces thin from hunger, eyes sharp with curiosity. Some run alongside the convoy, laughing, waving, holding out their hands for candy or water. It would almost feel innocent, almost feel human, if it weren't for the stories. The stories of kids used as distractions. Kids signalling with hand gestures to fighters hidden in the shadows. Kids trained to throw rocks, Molotov cocktails, or even grenades. You can't look at them without wondering if their smiles hide something sharper. You don't wave back. You keep your eyes forward, jaw tight, finger near your trigger. Because out here, even children are unpredictable. The women stand farther back, wrapped in bright fabrics that look out of place against the dust and concrete. They carry baskets, haul jugs of water, shuffle past with children clinging to their sides. Their eyes don't smile, they don't wave, they just stare, unblinking, cold as if you're something rotten that drifted into their neighbourhood. And in their eyes, you are. You represent everything that's gone wrong, everything that keeps their lives unstable, everything that turned their city into a battlefield. The men are worse. They don't hide their resentment. They stand in groups, arms crossed, watching as the convoy passes. They don't need to say anything. Their silence is louder than shouting. Sometimes one spits on the ground as you roll by. Sometimes one raises his hand, middle finger extended, or makes a throat-slitting gesture. And sometimes they just glare with that steady, hateful look that says if they had a weapon in their hand, you wouldn't make it another block. You try not to meet their eyes, but you can't help it. You scan constantly, looking for threats. And in a city like this, every face feels like one. You see a man squatting by a pile of rubble, and you wonder if he's resting or waiting. You see a group of teenagers whispering, and you wonder if they're joking with each other or signalling to someone on the roof above. You see someone carrying a sack over their shoulder, and you wonder if it's food or an RPG. Every movement, every glance, every gesture is loaded with suspicion. There's no trust, none. The people don't see you as a protector, no matter what you've been told in briefings. They don't see you as a guest, no matter what flag you wear on your shoulder. They see you as an invader, a foreign soldier stomping through their streets, armoured and armed, disrupting their lives with every convoy, every patrol, every firefight that erupts in their neighbourhoods. You think you're here to stabilise, to help, to bring order. They think you're here to dominate, to control, to make their suffering worse. And maybe they're not wrong. The hostility isn't always quiet. Sometimes it's rocks thrown at the vehicles, bouncing off the doors, cracking against the windows. Sometimes it's curses shouted in Somali, words you don't understand but tones you can't mistake. The anger is raw, loud, and directed squarely at you. And the worst part is, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't stop the convoy. You can't step out and confront anyone. You can't win them over with kindness. All you can do is keep moving, pretending the hatred rolling off the crowd doesn't stick to your skin like the dust already does. And it sticks. You feel it even after the convoy passes, even when the streets empty behind you. The weight of their stares lingers, a constant reminder that you are unwelcome in every corner of this city. You can't buy food in the markets without being watched. You can't walk past a house without someone peeking through a curtain. You can't stand still without drawing a crowd. Every second you're here, you're visible, and visibility is danger. What makes it worse is the unpredictability. Sometimes the stares stay just that. Stares, glares, curses, a rock or two, and nothing more. Other times, the hostility flips in a second. A calm street erupts into gunfire. A silent crowd scatters as someone raises an RPG from behind a wall. The shift happens so fast you can't prepare for it. One moment, it's glares and whispers. The next, it's chaos, bullets snapping through the air. And then when it's over, the city goes back to staring, as if nothing happened at all. You ride through these streets, knowing there's no winning hearts here. You're not going to shake hands and change minds. You're not going to convince anyone that you're a hero. You're just another soldier in a city that's had too many, carrying the weight of their hate along with the weight of your gear. And every time you see another glare, another cold stare from the side of the road, you know the truth. Mogadishu doesn't want you. It never did. Silence isn't something you'll ever find in Mogadishu. Not in the barracks, not on patrol, not in a Humvee, not even in the dead of night. The city never shuts up. It's a soundtrack of chaos, layered so thick you stop hearing it as separate pieces and just accept it as one endless roar grinding down your nerves. The engines come first, trucks backfiring, motorcycles sputtering, generators groaning. Every block has something coughing black smoke into the air. The smell of diesel clings to everything, burning the back of your throat, mixing with the dust until you can taste it. You tell yourself you'll get used to it, but you don't. It just becomes part of the noise, part of the punishment. Then there are the voices. Markets explode with shouts as vendors push whatever scraps they're selling. Fish that's been sitting in the sun too long, fruit half rotten, piles of grain crawling with bugs. Bargaining isn't quiet here. It's loud, angry, desperate. The yelling carries down the streets, bouncing off crumbling walls, blending into the general roar until you can't tell if it's a business deal or the start of a fight. Children add their own layer, shrieking, laughing, sometimes crying. They dart between legs and vehicles, chasing each other, chasing goats, sometimes chasing you. Yelling words you don't understand, but tones you can't mistake. Some are playful, some are mocking. All of it adds to the endless racket. And then there's the gunfire. Always somewhere, always random, always part of the background. Single cracks echoing from distant rooftops. Bursts of automatic fire rattling like someone shaking a jar of nails. It doesn't even register as combat half the time. People don't scatter. They don't scream. They barely react. It's just another sound layered into the city's constant noise, like car horns back home. You hear it, your pulse spikes, and then you realise nobody else moved. That's when it sinks in. This is normal here. The helicopters above never let you forget where you are. Their rotors thump like war drums, shaking the air, drowning out everything else for a moment before fading back into the mix. You think you'll find quiet once they pass, but you never do. The moment they fade, the rest of the city fills the gap, as if the noise itself refuses to leave any space. Even at night, the racket doesn't stop. Dogs bark endlessly, howling at nothing, fighting in the alleys. Generators rumble on, their metallic growl never ceasing. Somewhere, always somewhere, there's music, distorted, tinny, blaring from battered radios. Drums, voices, songs that drift in and out, carried on the hot wind. And under all of it, you still hear gunfire, short bursts, sharp cracks, a constant reminder that danger doesn't keep a schedule. Inside the barracks, you'd think it would be better, but it's not. Snores rumble from the cots around you. Boots shuffle across concrete at all hours. Radios crackle with static, voices hissing in clipped bursts. Someone coughs, someone mutters in their sleep. Someone slams a locker shut. Even with earplugs jammed in, you hear the vibrations through the walls, through the floor, through your skull. The noise seeps into your bones until you can't remember what silence feels like. The worst part isn't the volume, it's the unpredictability. A market shouting match can turn into a riot in seconds. A motorcycle revving too close can mask the approach of gunfire. A random firecracker or backfiring engine can sound like an RPG launching. You can't tune it out, because you never know which sound is harmless and which sound is the one that means you're about to die. Every bang, every pop, every shout forces your body to jolt. Muscles tightening, hands gripping your rifle tighter. Sleep doesn't protect you from it. You drift in and out, waking every hour, convinced some new sound is danger at your doorstep. You hear footsteps outside and wonder if it's a patrol or something worse. You hear glass break in the distance and wonder if it's a fight or a signal. You hear a sudden silence between bursts of noise, and that's somehow even worse, because you know quiet in Mogadishu usually means something is about to happen. The noise gnaws at you, day after day, night after night. It keeps you on edge, keeps you restless, keeps you from ever truly resting. It's not just sound anymore. It's stress, it's tension, it's exhaustion carved into your nerves until you twitch at every sharp noise. And the city knows it. The city thrives on it. Mogadishu doesn't fight you in silence. It wears you down with sound, grinding at your sanity until even in your head, even in your dreams, the noise never stops. You can live with the noise. You can live with the heat. You can live with the dust that sticks to your skin like a second layer of clothing. But hunger and exhaustion, those carve into you differently. They don't just drain your body, they hollow you out from the inside until even standing upright feels like work. Out here, you're always tired, always hungry, and the one thing you have to rely on for fuel is a pouch of food designed to last decades in a warehouse. Sleep never comes easy. The noise, the heat, the stench of sweat-soaked barracks. It keeps you half awake even when your eyes close. You toss and turn on the cot, scratch at your skin, shift your gear piled at your feet, and drift into something that isn't really sleep. When you finally do shut down, it's shallow, restless, broken by footsteps in the hall, radios crackling, helicopters thumping overhead. You wake up sore, drenched in sweat, more tired than when you lay down, and then you do it all over again the next night, and the one after that. The exhaustion never leaves. It settles in your bones, dragging at your arms and legs, making every step heavier, every lift of your rifle slower. Your eyes burn from dust and fatigue. Your head throbs from dehydration and lack of rest. Coffee doesn't help. The instant packets mixed with lukewarm water taste like dirt scraped off a boot, and they barely nudge you toward alertness. You drink them anyway, desperate for anything to push back the fog. But the fog always wins. Then there's the food. The meals, ready to eat. Brown pouches packed with whatever the military could cram inside to keep a soldier technically alive. They aren't meals, they're chores. Every packet you rip open is a gamble between bland mush, chewy bricks, or pastes that look and smell like something scraped out of a can for a dog. You sit in the dust, tearing them open with dirty fingers, and shovel it in because you have to, not because you want to. The flavours range from tolerable to disgusting. Powdered eggs that taste like wet cardboard. Oatmeal that congeals into glue the second it cools. Beef stew that's more salt than beef, with chunks that feel like chewing on rubber. Crackers so dry they vacuum the moisture from your mouth, paired with peanut butter or cheese spread that tastes faintly like chemicals and feet. You choke it down with warm water, grimacing at every bite. Sometimes you get lucky. A packet of jalapeno cheese spread, a cookie that hasn't crumbled into dust, a pound cake that actually tastes like cake. Those moments feel like miracles, and you guard them like treasure, trading them with other guys or saving them for later. But they're rare. Most of the time, you're chewing something that feels like punishment, forcing it down because the alternative is running on empty. And you are running on empty. No matter how many calories those pouches claim to hold, the heat burns through them faster than you can eat. You sweat out more salt than you take in. You march until your legs ache, carry gear until your shoulders throb, fight until your arms feel like lead. By the time you sit down to eat again, your stomach is gnawing at itself, hollow and sharp. But the food doesn't fill you. It just stops the ache for a little while before it comes back stronger. The hunger sharpens your temper. Little things set you off. Someone bumping into you. Someone hogging water. Someone cracking a bad joke when you're too tired to laugh. Your body wants rest. It wants real food. It wants relief. And none of it's coming. You can't snap your fingers and conjure a burger. You can't stretch out on a clean mattress. You can't silence the city. All you can do is rip open another pouch, chew another bite of processed sludge, and keep going. Even your stomach rebels sometimes. The food is shelf-stable, designed to last decades, packed with preservatives and salt. It clogs you up, constipates you until you're doubled over in pain. Or worse, it pushes through too fast, sending you scrambling for the latrine in the middle of the night, clutching your stomach while you curse every bite you swallowed. Your body wants nutrition. What it gets is survival rations, and survival never feels good. The exhaustion and hunger blur together until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Your legs drag, your hands shake, your head nods even when you try and force it up. You chew with your eyes half closed, too tired to taste, too tired to care. The food doesn't energize you. It doesn't give you strength. It just keeps you barely functioning, dragging yourself forward one pouch at a time. And always, there's the thought of home. Of real meals, hot meals, food with flavour and texture that doesn't come from a pouch. You imagine pancakes dripping with syrup, burgers stacked high with cheese and bacon, ice-cold soda sweating in the glass. You could almost taste it, almost feel the weight of it in your stomach. Then you blink, and all you've got is another pouch of brown mush, gritty from the dust, blowing into it the second you tore it open. So you eat, you swallow, you grimace. And when it's gone, you sit there with your back aching, your stomach still not satisfied, your eyes fighting to stay open. Hunger never leaves, exhaustion never leaves, and the MREs never help as much as you want them to. But you keep moving, because out here, there's no other option. Your stomach is still twisting from whatever you just forced down. Your eyelids feel like lead weights, and that's when the radios start. They're never quiet. They never stop. A hiss of static, a burst of garbled words, then silence for 2 seconds before the next voice crackles through. It's constant, broken noise, and you live by it whether you want to or not. Radios are supposed to bring clarity. Out here they do the opposite. One frequency is filled with clipped commands that cut out halfway through. Another carries reports from different squads, all talking at once, voices stepping over each other until you can't tell who said what. Static chews through sentences, muffling key words, leaving you trying to piece together meaning from fragments. Convoy, east, contact. The words blend together, and you don't know if that means trouble is 2 blocks over or waiting right around the corner. The slang, the call signs, the abbreviations. Half the time it feels like another language. You're tired, sweating, brain half shut from heat and hunger, and you're supposed to translate static and shorthand into survival. The sergeant's voice crackles in your ear, sharp and impatient, telling you to move, to hold, to shift position. Sometimes you don't even hear the whole order. You're left staring at your squad mates, hoping someone else caught it, hoping you're not the only one who missed the one word that could keep you alive. And it's not just one radio. Everyone has one. Radios clipped to vests, radios in the Humvees, radios in the helicopters overhead. They all talk at once, crossing over, buzzing in your ear until it feels like a swarm of bees lodged inside your skull. You try to focus on the one that matters, the one your squad leader listens to, but even then it's chaos. Too many voices, too much overlap, too much static. The worst is when it gets frantic. A firefight breaks out, and suddenly the radio explodes. Shouting, swearing, desperate calls for ammo, for medics, for backup. It's a flood of words, impossible to follow. Everyone talking over each other. Nobody waiting their turn. You hear fragments. Contact north. Black Hawk hit. We need... And then another voice cuts in, shouting about a different street, a different squad, a different emergency. The noise swallows itself, until all you know is that something is happening, but not where, not how close, not what you're supposed to do. You're wired to that confusion. You can't shut it off. Even when you want to rip the earpiece out and throw it in the dirt, you can't. The radio is your lifeline. It's how you know when to move, where to move, when to duck, when to fire. Without it, you're blind. But with it, you're overwhelmed, forced to wade through static and shouting while trying to keep your weapon steady and your eyes scanning every rooftop. And the messages aren't always right. Someone misreads a map. Someone miscalls a location. Someone panics and gives bad information. You hear safe and think you can move, but then a burst of gunfire proves otherwise. You hear clear and step out into the open, only to realise clear meant clear 2 minutes ago, not clear now. Confusion kills. And out here, confusion is baked into the system. The strain builds. You're exhausted, you're hungry, you're sweating through every layer of your gear, and now Your brain is crammed full of half-heard words and garbled orders. You can't tune it out because one of those broken phrases could be the difference between getting home and not getting home. So you keep listening, head buzzing, nerves frayed, ears ringing from the endless crackle. Sometimes you hear voices you know. A squad leader you've worked with, calm under pressure, steady even when everything else falls apart. Hearing him makes you feel like maybe you can get through it. But other times, you hear the edge in someone's tone, the panic creeping in. You hear them shout into the radio, words stumbling, voice cracking, and you know they're in trouble. You want to help, but you can't. You're pinned down somewhere else, or you're waiting on orders that never come. You just sit there, gripping your rifle tighter, listening to someone else's fear bleed through the static. The radio doesn't stop when the firefight ends. It doesn't stop when you're back at base. It follows you everywhere. Even in the barracks, it hisses and crackles, bursts of chatter breaking through the night. You lie on your cot, eyes closed, pretending you're asleep, but your brain is still parsing the noise, still waiting for a call sign, still trying to figure out if you're about to be dragged out into the street again. Out here, silence is impossible. Clarity is impossible. The radio is constant noise, constant confusion, constant stress chewing at the edges of your sanity. You want to turn it off. You can't. You want to tune it out. You can't. You want to make sense of it. Most of the time you can't, so you sit there sweating, tired, stomach churning from another half-eaten MRE, gripping the earpiece like it's your only tether to survival, and drowning in the chatter that never stops making less sense than you need it to. The radios had been a wall of noise all day, buzzing with orders, overlapping voices, bursts of panic you tried to piece together into meaning. Most of the time, it was background stress, just another layer of static you lived with. But then came the moment when the chatter shifted, when the clipped reports and half words suddenly sharpened into something unmistakable. You didn't need the full message. You didn't need the details. The tone said it all. A Black Hawk was down. The words cut through everything else like a blade. At first, it was disbelief. Helicopters were supposed to be the hammer. The gods above, circling with firepower no one on the ground could match. You told yourself they were untouchable, hovering guardians that nothing could bring down. And then, in a single crack of an RPG and a sickening drop through the sky, all that confidence shattered. You didn't see it right away. You heard it. The heavy thump of the rotors chopping the air shifted, wobbling, breaking rhythm. The sound went from steady to frantic in seconds, the machine fighting to stay upright. Then came the shriek of metal, the gut-punching crash as the helicopter slammed into the streets below. Dust and smoke rose in a plume that marked the spot like a beacon, and every soldier who saw it knew exactly what it meant. The rules of the fight had just changed. On the radio, voices overlapped in a frenzy. Coordinates barked, units redirected, panicked calls for support. Words bled into each other until all you could make out was the urgency. One bird was down, and that meant men were trapped. They weren't just machines falling out of the sky. They were crews, soldiers, people you knew or at least recognized. And now they were surrounded by a city that wanted nothing more than to rip them apart. The order came to move. Nobody hesitated. You grabbed your rifle tighter, shifted the weight of your gear, and pushed forward, heart pounding harder than it had all day. Every step felt heavier, but you didn't stop. There was no option. A Black Hawk going down wasn't just a loss. It was a spark. And Mogadishu lit up the moment it hit the ground. The city exploded. Streets that had been tense but quiet erupted with gunfire. Windows you'd scanned earlier, alleys you'd already passed, suddenly flashed with muzzle fire. Fighters poured into the open, rifles raised, RPGs on shoulders, moving with the confidence of men who had just proven they could bring down the strongest thing in the sky. The air filled with smoke, dust, and the sound of shouting in every direction. It was no longer about patrols or convoys. This was survival. You moved toward the crash site, but every block felt like an ambush. Every corner you turned, more fire rained down. The radio screamed in your ear, overlapping voices calling out contacts, casualties, desperate pleas for ammo and medics. It was chaos, pure and unrelenting. You could barely hear your own breathing over the noise, barely see your own hands through the smoke. The weight of your gear doubled, tripled. Your mouth was dry, your chest burned, your legs felt like lead. But adrenaline pushed you forward. You thought of the crew, the men trapped inside twisted metal, and the thought of leaving them there was unthinkable. You pushed harder, ignoring the burn in your lungs, the sting of sweat in your eyes, the ache in every muscle. And then you saw it, the wreckage, a Black Hawk that had once been a symbol of power, now twisted into a carcass of steel and smoke. Rotors bent and broken, fire licking at the sides, debris scattered across the street. The smell of fuel mixed with dust and blood hung heavy in the air. And surrounding it, gunfire from every direction, fighters closing in, the city swarming like it had been waiting for this exact moment. The sight was crushing. It wasn't just a downed helicopter. It was a message, written in smoke and fire. You're not untouchable. You're not invincible. You're not in control here. And the city knew it. You could feel the shift in the air, the confidence surging in the fighters, the panic creeping into your own lines. What had been tense patrols and scattered engagements had become open war. You hit the dirt, fired back, shouted over the roar of your own weapon, tried to make sense of the chaos. Bullets snapped overhead, ricocheted off walls, bit into the wreckage itself. The heat of the fire mixed with the heat of the sun, until it felt like the air itself was trying to suffocate you. The noise was relentless. Radios screaming, rifles cracking, RPGs whooshing through the air, explosions slamming into the streets around you. This wasn't just about the men inside anymore. It was about everyone. The downed Black Hawk turned the city into a magnet, pulling fighters from every direction, dragging every soldier into the fight, whether they were ready or not. It became the centre of gravity, the place everything revolved around. And as you crouched behind a wall, sweat pouring, lungs heaving, rifle hot in your hands, you realised this wasn't going to end quickly. The city had its proof now. The helicopters weren't invincible. The soldiers weren't invincible. And with every passing second, Mogadishu turned into a battlefield you were trapped inside, the streets closing in, the gunfire growing louder, the realisation sinking deeper that this fight was only beginning. The crash site wasn't a destination, it was a magnet. The moment the Black Hawks went down, every street in Mogadishu shifted toward it. Fighters swarmed, locals poured into the roads, the air filled with gunfire from every angle. And suddenly, you weren't just riding in convoys or crouching behind sandbags anymore. You were running, boots pounding broken pavement, weaving through enemy streets that seemed to close in tighter with every block. Running with full gear isn't running. It's dragging your own body through mud, while a second body, your pack, your vest, your rifle, tries to pull you backward. Each step rattles your knees, slams your boots into the uneven ground, grinds grit deeper into the blisters already tearing at your feet. The straps cut into your shoulders, your lungs claw for air, and every ounce of water you've ever drunk feels gone. But you keep running because stopping isn't an option. The streets themselves fight you as much as the enemy does. They aren't clean avenues lined with neat sidewalks. They're rubble-strewn paths, broken by potholes and craters, slick with trash, sewage and blood. You dodge burned-out cars left to rust in the middle of the road, leap over piles of debris, stumble through sand and dirt that shift under your boots. Every turn feels like it leads you deeper into a maze designed to trap you. And it is. Mogadishu isn't your city. You don't know its shortcuts, its dead ends, its alleys that loop back on themselves. But the fighters do. They've lived here their whole lives. And now, the city itself feels like their weapon. Gunfire echoes off the walls, impossible to place. A sharp crack from the left ricochets through the buildings and sounds like it came from the right. A burst behind you sounds like it's in front of you. You sprint through the noise, never sure where the bullets are actually coming from, just knowing they're close. Too close. Splinters of concrete spray from walls inches from your head, shards stinging your face. You don't even flinch anymore, you just keep running. The locals don't hide. Some scatter as you charge down the road, pulling children into doorways, ducking into alleys. Others stand and watch, glaring, shouting in words you don't understand, but tones you don't need translated. And some join the fight. A man who looked like a bystander a block ago suddenly raises a rifle from under his shirt. A teenager perched on a rooftop lifts an RPG onto his shoulder. The line between civilian and fighter blurs into nothing, and every face you pass could turn into a threat by the next corner. You run in bursts, sprinting from one wall to the next, diving into shallow cover, then sprinting again. Your squad spreads out, weapons up, eyes darting, but there's no real formation anymore. The city pulls you apart, scatters you with its narrow alleys and sudden intersections. You glance back, and sometimes you can't even see the man who was right behind you seconds ago. You hear his boots, his breath, his shouted curse, but he's swallowed by the streets, just like the sound of gunfire is swallowed by the noise. The radio crackles in your ear, voices breaking in and out, but the words are useless. Too many reports, too much static, too much chaos. You can't wait for orders. You just run where you're told, or where you think you should, chasing the sound of your squad leader's voice, chasing the crash site, chasing survival. Every turn feels like a gamble. Every alley like it could open up into another ambush. But you keep moving because standing still in Mogadishu is suicide. Your chest burns, your legs scream. Your lungs pull in hot, dusty air that feels like it's cooking you from the inside. Sweat runs into your eyes, blurs your vision, stings until you blink it away. Your rifle bounces against your chest with every step, bruising your ribs, throwing off your balance. You tighten your grip, try to steady it, but the weight drags you down all the same. And still, you run. You hear the snap of bullets passing too close, the hiss of rounds slicing the air near your head. You hear the whoosh of an RPG firing, the blast of impact shaking the ground, dust and debris spraying across your face. You hit the dirt instinctively, then scramble back to your feet, legs shaking, heart hammering, and run again. There's no pause, no break, no relief. You just keep moving forward through streets that feel like they'll never end. Every intersection is a new nightmare. You peek around corners, eyes searching for muzzle flashes, shadows, movement. Sometimes it's quiet, and that's worse. Quiet means an ambush waiting. Quiet means you're seconds away from someone stepping out of a doorway with a rifle aimed at your chest. You sprint through anyway, praying your boots hit pavement faster than the trigger pull of whoever's waiting. The city swallows you whole. The sounds blur together. Shouting, gunfire, radios, helicopters overhead. The smells choke you. Burning rubber, gunpowder, sweat, sewage. The heat presses in from every side, baking the metal of your rifle until it burns your palms. And through it all, you keep running, because the downed helicopters need you, because your squad needs you, because if you stop, you'll never start again. Mogadishu doesn't make running easy. It makes every step a punishment, every corner a threat, every breath a struggle. But you run anyway, boots pounding against broken streets, lungs screaming, heart racing. You don't run for speed, you run for survival, and the city makes sure survival never comes cheap. The streets were bad enough, open air, bullets snapping past, RPGs screaming out of alleys, but nothing compares to being forced inside. The city doesn't just fight you from rooftops and corners. It pulls you into its guts, house by house, room by room, and the fight gets personal in a way that feels different from everything else. Out there, you're running, ducking, firing into windows you can barely see. In here, you're face to face with shadows, and every doorway feels like the last one you'll ever step through. The houses aren't homes in the way you'd think of them. They're hollowed out shells, concrete walls pocked with bullet holes, furniture smashed or burned, curtains shredded into strips of dirty cloth. The air inside is stale, thick with dust kicked up from boots and gunfire, mixed with a sour stench of sweat and rot. You can taste it when you breathe. Taste the history of a city that's been fighting too long for anything inside to feel like safety. You kick through the door, and the first thing that hits you is how little space there is. The hallways are narrow, the ceilings low, the rooms cramped. Your gear catches on the doorframe. Your rifle knocks against the wall. Your pack scrapes behind you. Everything feels too tight. You're already sweating, already short of breath, and now the walls close in until it feels like you're being smothered. Every corner is a threat. You hug the wall, muzzle raised, heart hammering, and your mind races ahead of your body. Is someone crouched in the next room? Is that pile of blankets just trash? Or is it hiding a rifle? Is that sound footsteps? Or just the echo of your own squad behind you? You can't know until you push forward, and pushing forward is the only option. Gunfire inside a house is deafening. Outdoors, the sound cracks and echoes, but inside, it's like an explosion going off in your head. One trigger pull, and your ears ring so hard you can barely hear your own voice. Shouts from your squad bounce off the walls, overlapping into garbled noise. You can't tell what's orders and what's panic. You just move, fire, move again, your body on autopilot while your brain scrambles to keep up. The fights are close, always close. A flash of movement in a doorway, a figure stepping out from behind a wall, and suddenly it's you or them in the space of a heartbeat. You fire before you think, the recoil slamming into your shoulder, muzzle flash blinding in the dark room. The smell of gunpowder fills the air, thick and sharp, mixing with the dust until it chokes you. Sometimes the figure drops instantly. Sometimes they fire back, rounds slamming into the wall inches from your head, shards of concrete cutting into your face. The furniture turns into obstacles. Broken tables, overturned chairs, smashed cupboards, all of it cluttered in the middle of the room, forcing you to climb, to stumble, to push through while trying to keep your weapon steady. You move fast, because slow means dead, but moving fast means tripping, falling, fumbling. Every mistake feels fatal, and sometimes it is. The stairs are the worst. Narrow, steep, with no cover, and no way to see what waits above. You stack up at the bottom, heart pounding, sweat dripping into your eyes, and you climb one slow step at a time, muzzle raised, finger tight on the trigger. Every creak of the wood sounds like an alarm. Every shadow at the top feels like the barrel of a rifle waiting to greet you. By the time you reach the landing, your legs are shaking, not from exhaustion, but from the sheer tension of waiting for the inevitable shot. And when it comes, it's chaos. Muzzle flashes from the top of the stairs, deafening cracks in the enclosed space, sparks from bullets slamming into the walls. You return fire blindly, ears ringing, eyes burning, lungs gasping for air thick with smoke and dust. You charge forward because stopping isn't an option, and suddenly you're in another room, another fight, another round of chaos that feels like it will never end. You lose track of time inside the houses. Minutes feel like hours. Hours feel like minutes. You don't know how long you've been moving, how many rooms you've cleared, how many times your fingers pulled the trigger. The only thing you know is that it doesn't stop. You push through one house, spill back into the street, and the next house is waiting. Another doorway, another set of stairs, another set of shadows that could be empty or filled with people who want you dead. Your body is screaming. Your lungs are raw, your legs heavy, your arms trembling from the weight of the rifle and the constant recoil. Sweat soaks your uniform, dripping into your eyes, stinging every cut and scrape. Dust coats your throat until you're coughing between breaths. You want to stop, to sit, to breathe, but the city doesn't let you. The city keeps shoving you forward, one house after another, until you feel like you've been swallowed whole by concrete and shadows. And the worst part is the not knowing. Not knowing if the house you're about to enter is empty or if it's the one that kills you. Not knowing if the corner you're about to turn hides a fighter or nothing at all. Not knowing if the man in the doorway is armed or just another civilian caught in the wrong place. Every decision feels like a coin flip, and every flip could end your life. So you keep moving, house to house, room to room, doorway to doorway, firing when you have to, ducking when you can, stumbling through the dust and the heat and the noise. The city pulls you deeper and deeper and deeper, until you don't know if you're clearing the houses or if the houses are clearing you. When the fight presses this close, with dust choking the air and gunfire bouncing off concrete from every direction, the line between enemy fire and friendly fire starts to blur. Out in the open you think you'd know. You think you'd hear the difference, spot the muzzle flash, track the angle of the shot. But in Mogadishu, surrounded by alleys and broken walls, every bullet sounds like it's meant for you. And sometimes the ones that are meant for you don't come from the people you expect. The chaos makes it inevitable. Squads splintered, men scattered, radios screaming, orders cutting out mid-sentence. It's too much. You're sprinting from cover to cover, heart pounding, rifle shaking in your hands, and another squad barrels in from a different street at the same time. They see movement, shadows ducking behind walls, and their fingers are already on the triggers. In a split second, you're trading fire with the very people you're supposed to be fighting alongside. The worst part is how quickly it happens. One mistake, one misidentification, one man panicking and firing first. The muzzle flashes light up the street, rounds snap past your head, and you fire back without thinking. Only later do you realise the figures in the doorway weren't militia. They were your own. By then the damage is done. Blood on the ground, radios screaming for medics, curses shouted in disbelief as the realisation sinks in. Inside the buildings it's worse. Shadows and tight corners mean you're always a half second from disaster. You burst through a doorway, rifle raised, adrenaline spiking, and in the dim light you see a figure moving. You fire. The crack deafens you in the narrow space. The flash burns your vision, and only after the body drops do you realise the uniform looks too familiar. The sound of your own squad mate groaning on the floor freezes you harder than any enemy shot ever could. Friendly fire doesn't always mean hits. Sometimes it's near misses, bullets snapping past your ear from behind, ricochets sparking inches from your boots. You whip around, furious, only to see another soldier staring back with the same wide eyes, both of you realising how close you just came to killing each other. There's no time to talk about it, no time to process it. You just nod once, grip your rifle tighter, and keep moving. The confusion of radio chatter doesn't help. Voices yelling contact north while you're already taking fire from the east. Coordinates miscalled. Squads misidentified. You hear reports of enemy movement, only to find out later those were your own guys caught in the wrong alley. Every miscommunication is a chance for someone to pull the trigger in the wrong direction, and in Mogadishu, chances are everywhere. The noise amplifies it. Gunfire bouncing off walls, echoing in ways that trick your ears. A shot from the building behind you sounds like it came from in front. A burst from a friendly squad one street over sounds like it came from a rooftop overhead. You react instinctively, aim, fire back. Your body doesn't wait for confirmation. It can't. By the time you second guess, you're already squeezing the trigger, and by then the bullet's gone. The guilt comes fast, and it stays. You see the look in someone's eyes when they realise the round that clipped them didn't come from the enemy. You hear the curses shouted in the heat of the moment, the anger, the disbelief. Later, in the rare quiet, you replay it in your head, the flash of the muzzle, the blur of a silhouette, the way you didn't check, didn't confirm, didn't wait. You tell yourself you couldn't. You tell yourself you didn't have time. But the image sticks anyway, heavy as the gear on your shoulders, impossible to shrug off. And even if you never pull the trigger on your own by mistake, the fear never leaves. Every time you push into a new room, every time you sprint across a street, you wonder if the next burst you hear will be aimed too low, too wide, too rushed from the men behind you. You trust them. You have to. But you also know they're exhausted, half blind with sweat, ears ringing from explosions, nerves frayed to breaking. You're not the only one on edge, and an edge that sharp cuts both ways. And the city doesn't care who kills you. It doesn't care if it's a fighter in an alley, or your own squad mate firing through a cloud of dust. A bullet is a bullet, and Mogadishu provides plenty of them. The chaos makes sure of it. In the noise, in the heat, in the blur of movement and panic, mistakes are inevitable. And each one adds another layer of fear, another reason to hesitate, another crack in the fragile trust holding you all together. You keep moving anyway. You push into the next street, the next house, the next corner, knowing that danger doesn't only come from the windows above or the alleys ahead. Sometimes it comes from the man standing beside you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Gunfire in the streets and houses doesn't just end in noise and broken walls. It ends in bodies. And when men start dropping, that's when you realise just how thin the lifeline really is. Out here, there aren't enough medics. There never were. The math never works. Too many bullets, too much chaos, too many injuries for the handful of trained hands scrambling from man to man with bags that run out faster than anyone wants to admit. The first time someone near you goes down, the sound is sharper than the gunfire. A shout, a groan, a body hitting the dirt. You glance over and see the dark stain spreading across a uniform, the hand clutching at it, the eyes wide and frantic. Instinct says you want to help, but training says you keep moving, keep firing, keep scanning. And that's the hardest part. Watching someone you know bleeding out in the street, while you're pinned behind a wall, unable to do anything but pray the medic is close. The medics move fast, faster than anyone else, but they can't be everywhere. You hear the call go up, medic, medic, man down, and you know they're already sprinting through fire, crouching low, dragging themselves through dust and rubble to reach whoever needs them. Their bags slam against their backs, already lighter than they should be, because supplies run out too fast. Tourniquets, bandages, IV bags, there's never enough. They ration the way you ration water. Only the worst cases get the full treatment, because everyone else has to settle for something that'll hold them together just long enough to keep moving. The smell of blood mixes with the dust, iron sharp, unmistakable. It clings to your nose, sticks in your throat, makes you taste it when you swallow. You see uniforms soaked dark, gear stained, boots slipping in puddles you don't want to look at too closely. You hear groans, curses, prayers muttered under breath, and sometimes silence. Silence is the worst. Silence means the fight moved too fast for anyone to help. The medics work with bare hands, with sweat running into their eyes, with bullets snapping past as they press gauze into wounds, cinch tourniquets until men scream. They don't flinch, don't pause, they can't. They move to the next body, and then the next. You see them shove IV needles into arms, hands steady even when their own are shaking from exhaustion. You see them cut through uniforms with knives, exposing wounds you wish you hadn't seen, shredded muscle, torn flesh, bones splintered in ways that don't look real. And you hear the words nobody wants to hear. We can't save him. Short, brutal, final. The medics don't waste time. If someone's too far gone, they move on. They have to, because spending another minute on one man could mean losing two others. You see the look in their eyes when they say it. Anger, grief, frustration. But their hands never stop moving. There's no space for mourning in the middle of a firefight. Sometimes there's no medic close enough. And then it's up to you. You remember the drills. Tourniquet above the wound. Pressure on the bleeding. Keep the airway clear. But drills don't prepare you for the reality. For the way your hands slip on blood. For the way your friend thrashes in panic. for the way you're screaming over the noise, begging him to hold on, while you're shaking so badly you can barely tie the knot. You don't know if you're doing it right. You don't know if it'll hold. All you know is that you can't stop trying, even while rounds are still cracking past your head. The city doesn't wait for you to finish. The fight keeps going. Bullets don't pause because someone's bleeding. RPGs don't stop firing because a medic is kneeling in the street. You're still in the middle of it, still trying to shoot, move, survive, while someone screams at your feet. The medics know it better than anyone. They crouch in the open, bodies low, focused on the man in front of them, while the city tries to tear them apart. And always, the supplies run out. Bandages soaked through, tourniquets already used, morphine syringes emptied. The bags get lighter, the hands work faster, but the injuries keep coming. Too many men, too many wounds, too much blood. There's no such thing as enough. There never is. You see the aftermath in the eyes of the medics. They don't break down in the moment. They can't. But later, when the fight shifts, when the bodies are carried back, when the silence sets in, you see it. The weight of knowing they couldn't save them all. That no matter how fast they moved, how hard they worked, it was never enough. And it won't be tomorrow, or the day after. For everyone else, the injuries are a reminder. You glance at the bandaged man next to you, pale and shaking, still gripping his rifle with blood-soaked hands, and you realise how thin the line really is. One step in the wrong direction, one bullet too fast to duck, and you're the one on the ground, waiting for a medic who might not make it in time. So you keep moving, rifle raised, boots pounding through dust and blood, because that's the only choice you have. And in the back of your mind, you pray, not for silence, not for safety, not even for victory. You pray there's a medic close enough if it's your turn next. The sun finally dips, but night in Mogadishu doesn't bring rest. It doesn't cool the air the way you want it to. It doesn't hush the city. If anything, it makes everything worse. The heat lingers, trapped in the concrete, radiating back out long after the light is gone. The dust still hangs in the air, thicker in the dark because you can't see it. The city doesn't sleep, and neither do you. Daylight gave you at least some sense of what you were walking into. You could see the rooftops, the alleys, the shadows that might be hiding rifles or rocket launchers. At night, it's all one endless shadow. The alleys vanish into black holes, rooftops blur into the sky, windows glow faintly from fires or lanterns, but you can't tell which ones hold eyes watching you. Every shape in the dark feels like it's moving. Every flicker of light feels like the spark of a muzzle flash about to aim your way. You think night might muffle the noise, but it doesn't. If anything, the city gets louder. Dogs bark and howl endlessly, echoing through the alleys like alarms. Generators groan, sputter, rattle metal against metal. Somewhere, radios blare distorted music, voices shouting, laughter carrying through the dark. And layered over it all, the random bursts of gunfire. Sometimes close, sometimes distant, but always there. A reminder that the fight doesn't wait for morning. It's happening all around you, all the time. Your body screams for rest. Your legs ache, your shoulders burn, your hands shake from gripping your rifle too long. You've been running, crouching, firing, sweating since the sun came up. And now the dark stretches ahead like an endless punishment. You want to drop where you stand, close your eyes, shut it all out. But you can't. Nightfall doesn't mean downtime. It means moving again, pushing deeper, keeping the perimeter, holding the line, whatever orders filter through the static of the radios. The fear is sharper in the dark. During the day, you could at least see the danger coming, even if it was just a flicker of movement in the corner of your eye. At night, you don't see it until it's on top of you. Gunfire erupts out of nowhere, the flash blinding your eyes, the sound deafening in the narrow streets. Shadows dart across alleys, too fast to track, too close to aim properly. You fire back into blackness, not even sure what you're hitting, just hoping to push the danger back long enough to move forward. Night vision goggles help, but only so much. The green glow blurs details, makes every shadow look alive, makes the city feel even more alien. You see shapes, but not clarity. You see movement, but not intent. The goggles weigh on your head, sweat pooling around your eyes, fogging the lenses until you're wiping them with filthy gloves just to see a little better. And still, the dark swallows more than the goggles reveal. And always, the sense of being trapped hangs over you. The streets twist and turn, alleys leading into dead ends, walls rising where you thought there was a path. The city closes in tighter at night, as if it knows you're lost. Helicopters overhead mark the chaos, but don't provide relief. They can see more than you, but even their floodlights only carve out small pockets of clarity in a sea of darkness. The rest of the city remains hidden, waiting. You feel the weight of it most when you stop, crouched against a wall, catching your breath. Your chest heaves, your lungs drag in the hot, dusty air, and you realise how quiet your squad has become. Not silent, never silent, but quieter than usual, voices low, movement slow. Everyone carrying the same thought in the back of their minds. There's no way out, not tonight, not here. You're in the city's grip, and it isn't letting go. The orders over the radio don't help. One moment it's hold your position, the next it's move to the crash site, then it's reinforce the convoy. The directions shift as fast as the situation, and none of them give you an exit. You follow them because you have no choice, but each new order drags you deeper into the labyrinth. You don't know if you're 2 blocks from safety or 10 miles from it. The only thing you know is that you can't stop moving. The fear of being left behind gnaws at you. The city is a maze, and men have disappeared in it. You've heard the stories. Soldiers cut off, separated, surrounded before anyone could reach them. At night, the maze is worse. You stumble through narrow alleys, boots splashing in foul water, walls closing in so tight you can't raise your rifle without hitting concrete. Every turn feels like the wrong one. Every step feels like it carries you deeper into the city's jaws. And still you keep going. You push through the dark. Muscles aching, eyes burning, throat raw, rifle heavy in your hands. The night stretches on, endless, each hour dragging longer than the last. You keep thinking morning will bring relief, but morning is still hours away, and in Mogadishu, daylight doesn't guarantee survival either. So you move through the night, trapped in a city that doesn't want you, surrounded by shadows that never rest, carrying the weight of exhaustion and the heavier weight of knowing there's no way out tonight. You march, you stumble, you fire when you have to, and you pray the morning comes before a city swallows you whole. When morning finally comes, it doesn't feel like victory. It doesn't even feel like survival. It feels like the city spit you back out after chewing you up all night. The sun rises, the heat crashes down again, and you're still there. Sweat-soaked, dust-covered, ears ringing, body hollowed out by exhaustion. The fight doesn't end just because daylight returns. The fight ends only when there's nothing left to give, when men are pulled back, when the city decides it's had enough for now. The aftermath isn't quiet. The noise never truly stops. But there's a different weight to it. The gunfire fades into the distance, replaced by the groans of wounded men, the crackle of radios reporting casualties, the whine of helicopters circling overhead to pull out the broken pieces. You see the stretchers, the bodies draped in tarps, the blood soaking into the dirt. You step over shell casings, over shattered walls, over the debris of another night that shredded through men and machines alike. You tell yourself you should feel relief. You made it through. You're still standing, still breathing, still carrying your rifle. But the relief doesn't come. Instead, there's a heaviness that settles into your chest, thicker than the heat, heavier than the gear on your back. Because surviving Mogadishu doesn't mean leaving it behind. It means carrying it with you. Every sight, every sound, every smell burned into your memory whether you want it there or not. The weight comes in flashes. The look on a medic's face when he moved on from someone who couldn't be saved. The sound of your own rounds ricocheting off walls, not knowing if they hit who they were meant to. The glare of a local woman, eyes filled with hatred sharper than any bullet. The scream of a Black Hawk falling from the sky, the crash echoing in your bones. You don't shake those off. They don't fade with time. They stick like the dust clinging to your uniform, like the sweat burning your eyes, like the noise that never left your ears. Your body carries scars, even if they're not visible. Blisters from boots filled with sand, knees that ache from sprinting under too much weight, shoulders that throb from the straps digging in, a stomach wrecked from weeks of MREs and warm water, a throat raw from shouting over the gunfire, and deeper than all of that, the exhaustion that seeps into your bones and never really leaves. But the heavier scars aren't physical. They're the memories replayed in the quiet moments, the ones you can't escape, the faces of the men you lost, the ones carried out on stretchers, the ones you swore you'd never leave behind, the split-second decisions that still wake you in the middle of the night, when you fired, when you didn't, when you weren't sure if you aimed at the right silhouette, the guilt of knowing some wounds didn't come from the enemy, the endless question of whether you could have done more, could have done better, could have changed what happened. And even when you leave, Mogadishu doesn't let you go. You carry the heat, the dust, the noise in your head long after your boots leave the city. The chop of helicopter rotors makes your chest tighten, even if it's just a news clip on television. The slam of a car door echoes like gunfire, snapping your body into alert before your brain catches up. The smell of diesel drags you back instantly, makes your stomach churn like you're still sitting in the back of a Humvee. The city follows you, stitched into your nerves, burned into your senses. You look back at it all and try to make sense of it, but Mogadishu doesn't offer sense. It offers chaos. It offers survival on the edge of collapse, and the weight of knowing you lived when others didn't. That weight is heavier than the gear you carried, heavier than the rifle, heavier than the packs, and the armour that bruised your body raw. It's invisible, but it presses down harder than anything you can strap to your shoulders. And maybe that's the truth of it. You can train for the heat, you can train for the gear, you can train for the hunger, the thirst, the exhaustion, but you can't train for the weight you carry after. The weight of being inside a city that wanted you gone, a city that tore into you day and night, a city that marked you whether you made it out or not. So you stand there in the morning light, staring at the dust rising in the heat, listening to the rotors overhead, feeling the ache in every part of your body. You're alive, yes. But surviving Mogadishu was never about just making it through the night. Surviving Mogadishu means carrying the city with you forever, whether you want to or not. And that's how it was. The desert heat, the gear, the sand in every bite, the endless noise, the weight of the city pressing in from every side. You think you can imagine it, watching from a distance, sitting somewhere safe. But out there, it was never just one thing. It was all of it, stacked on top of each other, grinding you down day after day, until you weren't sure where the city ended and where you began. There wasn't relief when it was over. There wasn't triumph. There was just the silence after the fight, the exhaustion that left men staring blankly at nothing, the aching reminder that even when you walked away you carried Mogadishu with you. Some carried it in scars, some carried it in memories, some never carried it out at all. It's easy to think of it as history, something that happened far away, long ago, locked in the past. But for the ones who were there, history isn't a book or a movie or a lesson. It's the weight on their shoulders every morning, the noise in their ears every night, the city that never really let them go. And that's why you wouldn't last a day. Not because of the bullets or the rockets or the streets that swallowed soldiers whole, but because of the aftermath, because of the weight. Because once Mogadishu got hold of you, it never truly let go.